Colombia, presidential candidates speed up the process of gathering endorsements for the May 29th elections. The head of the Russian National Defense Management Center denounced the inhuman treatments committed by the Ukrainian military against civilians. And United Nations Special Rapporteur Alina Duhan said unilateral sanctions severely affect human rights in Iran. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, from the TeleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. And now we begin. Candidates for the presidency of Colombia accelerated the process to gather support for the elections of next May 29th. Gustavo Petro, the candidate for the historical pact and who, according to the polls, is the favorite in voting intention, confirmed the support to his campaign expressed by several singers who presented the song Te Quiero Mucho Colombia, where they spoke of such endorsement to him and his vice presidential candidate, Francia Márquez. On the other hand, the campaign of Federico Gutiérrez assured that a group of citizens under the Mejor Así Association ratified their support to the former mayor of Medellín through a release in which they talk about the need to fight against corruption. A court in Ecuador will decide whether to ratify or revoke the habeas corpus granted to former Vice President Jorge Glass. The hearing will take place in the province of Santa Elena, where the recourse was granted on April 10th. The hearing will be attended by representatives of the State Attorney General's Office and the National Service of Integral Attention to Adults Deprived of Their Freedom. Also attending the trial will be 33 people who filed a motion to be able to testify before the court. Meanwhile, the German embassy in Ecuador, on the grounds of Glass being a German citizen, requested virtual access to the hearing. Glass was sentenced to prison in 2017 for the Odebrecht bribery cases after partaking in proceedings labeled as rigged both domestically and abroad. In El Salvador, over 30,000 people were arrested during the emergency regime imposed by the government of President Nayib Bukele. After the Salvadoran president stated in March that he will start a war against criminal groups in order to stop the wave of homicides in the country, authorities have informed that they have arrested at least 30,506 gang members. The National Civil Police confirmed that 536 terrorists were captured last Sunday, May 15th. El Salvador is under siege by the Mara Salvatrucha, Barrio 18, and other groups, which total 70,000 members, of which a little more than 46,000 are imprisoned due to an offensive implemented by the Salvadoran executive. And Mexico's southern state of Guerrero decriminalized abortion in the first 12 weeks of pregnancy, becoming the 8th region in the Latin American country to do so. The state's legislature said the reform, which was promoted by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's Morena party, was approved by 30 votes in favor and 13 against. Guerrero, plagued by violence linked to drug trafficking, also has high rates of rape of women and deaths from clandestine abortions, according to local lawmaker Beatriz Mojica. Abortion has also been decriminalized in Mexico City and the states of Oaxaca, Baja California, Sonora, Colima, Veracruz, and Hidalgo. In September 2021, the Supreme Court declared the laws criminalizing abortion unconstitutional, authorizing it de facto throughout the country. The ruling allowed women who have lived in states where abortion is still forbidden to file a legal recourse so that health institutions perform an abortion on them. Nicaraguans commemorated the 126th anniversary of the birth of national hero Augusto César Sandino, known as the General of Free Men, and who inspired the Sandinista revolution that ousted dictator Anastasio Somoza in 1979. State employees and militants of the Sandinista National Liberation Front visited monuments dedicated to Sandino in different cities around the country to pay tribute to the Nicaraguan hero. In life, Sandino was the first leader of a guerrilla that repelled United States interventionist forces from a Latin American country. Between 1927 and 1933, he led the Army for the Defense of Nicaraguan national sovereignty. Augusto César Sandino inspired the creation of the Sandinista National Liberation Front, founded in 1961, and the Sandinista Popular Revolution. Now we move on to other topics. By Tuesday, Cyclone Yaquecan left over 220,000 houses without electricity in southern Brazil. Meanwhile, cities in Uruguay and Argentina remain on alert. The subtropical cyclone Yaquecan destroyed utility poles, trees, and downed electricity transmission cables in Brazilian state of Rio Grande do Sul. Because of the storm, Brazil's National Meteorological Institute issued an alert for 400 cities, where 3 may occur at windstorm. Another 41 towns are said to be in great danger. In Uruguay, Yaquecan left 1 dead in Montevideo and wreaked havoc in Punta del Este with winds of up to 100 kilometers per hour. And in Argentina, authorities issued a yellow alert for the city of Buenos Aires and its surroundings. And 4 key climate change indicators all set new record highs in 2021, the United Nations said on Wednesday, warning that the global energy system was driving humanity towards catastrophe. In its State of the Global Climate in 2021 report, the UN's World Meteorological Organization said greenhouse gas concentrations, sea level rise, ocean heat, and ocean acidification all set new records last year. The report confirmed that the past 7 years were the top 7 hottest years on record. In the meantime, UN Chief Antonio Guterres said the annual overview is a dismal of humanity's failure to tackle climate disruption. The WMO said human activity was causing planetary-scale changes on land, in the ocean, and in the atmosphere, with the harmful and long-lasting ramifications for ecosystems.
We are again showing that we have seen major negative development. Most striking is that we have again broken records in main greenhouse gas concentrations, carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. We have seen acidification of the ocean continued. We have seen records in sea level rise, which is related to melting of glaciers. It used to be about 2 millimeters per year 20 years ago, and recently we have seen 4.5 millimeters per year sea level rise.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. We are back. In Russia, the head of the National Defense Management Center, Mikhail Minziev, denounced on Wednesday the human treatments committed by the Ukrainian military against civilians. The diplomat pointed out that militants from the nationalist battalions and units of the Ukrainian armed forces used civilians as human shields. He also noted these extreme right nationalists still use civilian infrastructure to supply strongholds and deploy heavy weapons. Minziev detailed that members of the Azov battalion occupied a school and a kindergarten in the Kharkiv region, where they held by force several civilians in the basements, including minors. The Russian Defense Ministry said that 694 fighters of the nationalist Azov battalion and other Ukrainian military blockaded the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol, let down their arms in the last 24 hours. This was stated by the spokesperson of the Russian Defense Ministry, Igor Konashenkov, who said that among the fighters there were 29 seriously wounded. He also specified that since May 16th, a total of 959 fighters surrendered, including 80 wounded, 51 of whom needed medical help and were admitted to a hospital in the city of Novosibirsk of the Donetsk People's Republic. The Azovstal plant is the last stronghold of Ukrainian forces in Mariupol, a city on the coast of the Sea of Azov in southern eastern Ukraine, liberated by the Russian military and the Donetsk People's Republic in April. Russia's foreign ministry announced on Wednesday that 27 Spanish diplomats will have to leave the country within a week after announcing it will also expel 24 Italian as well as 34 French diplomats. The decision was announced by the ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova, stating that 27 employees of the Spanish embassy in Moscow and the Spanish consulate general in St. Petersburg have been declared persona non grata. The Federation will also expel 24 Italian diplomats and 34 French high government representatives. This happened after various European countries have ordered Russian staff out. Let us remember that last April, Spain expelled 25 Russian diplomats and embassy staff from Madrid. Meanwhile, and also in April, France kicked out 35 Russians in diplomatic status. In Russia, the central bank announced that Moscow's current account surplus more than tripled in the first quarter of this year, reaching at least $95.8 billion. Officials said on Wednesday that a steady inflow of energy export earnings and other export revenues, along with tight capital controls, helped support the ruble, making the Russian currency the world's best performing currency in 2022. The central bank did not disclose an exact figure for April, but reported a surplus of more than $58 billion for the first quarter, which means last month's figure could be around $37.6 billion. For the past 8 years, the mining town of Kharkovsk, west of Lugansk in the Donbass, has endured unrelenting shelling by Ukrainian forces located a few kilometers away. Today, it remains part of the front line in the Russian special military operation launched in February. Our special envoy there, Alejandro Kirk, is on site.
A public school in Kirovsk in western Lugansk today receives humanitarian aid from Russia. Here the war started in 2014 and has not stopped.
For 8 years, our people have lost relatives, lost loved ones, lost people and friends. Our people were losing their homes, losing their possessions. We all saw off our defenders of the Republic together. In 14 in particularly, since 14, schools, kindergartens, the city's swimming pool have been shelled. Ukraine has cut off our water completely. We stayed a year and a half in the city of Kirovsk. There was just no water. All these years, the shelling has been carried out precisely in the sleeping areas.
A Ukrainian missile landed unexploded in this house. It is the same type as the one that in April destroyed this residential building in Donetsk.
It came in from above, it hit the house, it broke through the wall, and that's where it went under the stove. Half a meter deep it went in, punched through the floor and the soil into the ground. And who was at home at that time? Me and my mom.
After 8 years of defending themselves from Ukrainian attacks, this time the people's militias are on the offensive, regaining the entire territory of the former province, now an independent republic.
At this moment, I can say that more than 90% of the territory of the Lugansk People's Republic has been liberated. First of all, when planning offensive actions, the leaders of the Luhansk People's Militias, as well as the military of the Russian Federation. They're guided by the principle that we should not leave behind a scorched soil but liberate it. Therefore, we have difficulties in advancing on all sections of the terrain. We should not forget that the Ukrainian military have people as human shields.
Mayor Sergeyevna is clear about the path to a lasting peace.
Racism is not completely destroyed on the territory of Ukraine. We will probably never have peace because Nazism does not disappear on its own. It just rears its head more and more. Well, as a resident of Kirovsk, I can't even compare the brutality that was on the Ukrainian side against us in 2014 and the atrocities that they now create. Nazism, indeed, over these 8 years has grown. It seems to me it has generally enslaved Ukraine with its views, its atrocities. Well, I think until Nazism is completely destroyed, we won't have complete peace.
Less than 30,000 people live in this mining town. The generous avenues and Soviet-era buildings betray a much larger project. Alejandro Kirk, TeleSUR, Kirovsk, Lugansk People's Republic.
And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. United Nations Special Rapporteur Alina Dohan says unilateral sanctions severely affect human rights in Iran. Dohan made the statement at a press conference in the capital, Tehran.
After the U.S. withdrawal from the JCPOA, the scope of sanctions imposed against Iran is much broader today than it was in the period 2010-2015. Human rights in Iran are severely affected by the use of unilateral sanctions. The most close to every single individual sphere is the sphere of health. The situation in Iran is the following: that some medicine are produced domestically. At the same time, the raw materials are imported. And then it comes the issue again of payments, deliveries, the quality of delivered raw materials. When it comes to the rare or severe diseases, there is no possibility to deliver that.
China firmly opposed a top United States naval officer's remarks on the Taiwan issue for violating the 3 joint communiques and interfering in China's internal affairs. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said on Wednesday.
The U.S. side's remarks violate its commitment to China and interfere in China's internal affairs. China firmly opposes this. By going back on its words, the U.S. will not only damage its own image, but also pay a corresponding price. Breaking promises on the Taiwan issue is bound to be punished by history. We urge the U.S. side to strictly follow the One China principle and the provisions of the 3 China-U.S. joint communiques and implement its statement of not supporting Taiwan independence, so as not to seriously damage China-U.S. relations and peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait.
And the Chinese President Xi Jinping had a phone conversation with Philippines President-elect Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos on Wednesday, exchanging their views on bilateral ties and regional development. Xi congratulated Marcos again on his election as the President of the Philippines. He stressed that Marcos has participated in and witnessed the development of China-Philippines relations, calling Marcos a builder, supporter, and promoter of the China-Philippines friendship. The Chinese head of state urged both countries to carry forward the friendship between them and stay true to their original aspirations. Marcos expressed his full expectations for better and stronger development of bilateral relations in the future, adding that he's ready to work with the Chinese side to inject new and strong impetus into the development of bilateral ties. Philippines' polls body proclaims the 12 senatorial winners in the country's elections after the national's election last week saw Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the son of namesake of the late Philippine dictator, being elected as the next president. And the Togolese government reopened its land borders with Ghana, Burkina Faso, and Benin on Tuesday. The decision comes after 2 years of closure aimed at preventing the spread of the coronavirus. Travelers will only be required to produce a vaccination certificate to authorities. So far this month, Togo recorded only 32 cases and no fatalities due to COVID-19. Emphasizing the slowdown in infections, the government issued a statement on Monday announcing the reopening of borders. The executive also said that the vaccination campaign, begun in March last year, should continue.
It's been 2 years since I came to Lomé, so I saw that on Facebook that the border is open, and I came to see my families in Lomé. When I arrived, the immigration service received me pretty well. They checked my identity card and my vaccination record, and everything was really fine. The border reopened today, which is a great relief for us. Our activities will now resume. We thank the government for this decision, especially during this difficult period.
A French appeals court on Wednesday confirmed that the cement giant Lafarge must face charges of complicity in crimes against humanity over alleged payoffs to Islamic State and other jihadist groups during Syria's civil war. Lafarge, now part of the Swiss building materials conglomerate Holcim, acknowledged that it paid nearly $13.7 million to middlemen to keep its Syrian cement factory running in 2013 and 2014, long after other French firms had pulled out of the country. The company contends that it had no responsibility for the money winding up in the hands of terrorist groups. And in 2019, it won a court ruling that threw out the charge of complicity in crimes against humanity. But that ruling was overturned by France's Supreme Court, which ordered a retrial in September 2021. And the recent decision on Wednesday means that a judge could order Lafarge and 8 of its executives, including former CEO Bruno Lafont, to stand trial. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.